I'm Jimi Hendrick, and this episode is called Wind Beneath My Wings on Empower Your Pattern 2.0. Did you know that there are success patterns to help you receive more, to help you live a better and extraordinary life right now? Well, I'm Jimi Hendrick. I am a success, confidence, and thrive coach, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and if you come with me, I will show you these success patterns. Let's go. Okay, I had another topic in mind, but, exigent circumstances. I just got through listening to a song. It was originally sung by Bette Midler, but the version I listened to was even more moving by a young lady by the name of Lucy Thomas. And you guys should listen to her. She sings the birds down from the trees. She's wonderful. Now, I digress. You're probably thinking, why Wind Beneath My Wings? Well, you guys remember last summer, in the episode 100s, I talked a lot about my best friend Keith and how he and some of his ideals was really some of the wisdom behind Empower Your Pattern. So I figured we would go ahead and go into his life. He was born on June 10th, 1963 in Odessa, Texas. His dad was stationed in the United States Navy in Key West, Florida, and in Virginia. And then his parents split up around the time that he was 9 years old. And his mother had, a couple of other marriages. When he was 14, he had a brain tumor that left him completely blind. And I did not meet him until November 20th, 1987. My mother decided that it was time for me not to be hanging around the house so much after school, but I needed to have some kind of socialization, even if it was among blind people. So I went to this meeting called, this club called Insight for the Blind. And it was there I first met my friend Jim Bob. I really felt like he was smart and everything. And it was through Jim Bob that I met Keith. And the thing is, Keith would call the name James, and both of us would answer. So Jim Bob said, "How about we call you Jimmy?" And at first I was like, negatory, because I thought that was my real dad's nickname, and I didn't want it. Well, 5 years passed. I was going to college at Odessa College. Met my friend Brad. And my friend Brad suggested, to avoid further confusion, that they just go ahead and call me Jimmy. So that's what I was called. From 1992, the name Jimmy stuck. Only people that call me James are people like from the old days, people connected to my family. But anyway, by old days, I mean high school and earlier. And so, not long after that, I started going to Keith's house and hanging out. He knew that I was younger than most of the other people at Insight for the Blind, and so he took an interest in me. And so I go to his house and play board games and stuff like that, and we formed a group, me, Keith, Brad, Jim Bob, and because we were members of the National Federation of the Blind, we were known as the Federation 4, beginning in 1992. And I mean, we hung out and we did everything together. But by 1993, the Federation 4 began to have some serious problems. Me and Keith started having problems with Brad. And so that brought a rift between us and Jim Bob sometimes. I remember it was in June of 1993. I was in a Whataburger in the mall. It was in the mall at the time. And Keith said, Jimmy, I want to testify that I believe the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is true. And I just know that if you united yourselves to our church, you would be very happy. And I said, Keith, man, thanks, but no thanks. But I'm very happy where I'm at. Plain truth, Keith saw right through me. He knew I was not happy. I was trying to keep the Federation 4 alive. And around that same time, a couple months later, a friend of mine who was my reader at the time, Julie, entered my life. And we thought, well, okay, that's what's going to unite the Federation 4. Not necessarily. Because Brad became more antagonistic to Keith. Because of his weight, which is not his fault. See, Keith had something that was called giantism as a result of his brain tumor. And he was very conscious about his weight, but he knew to some degree he could not control it. And so that became a bone of contention, so much to the point that in March of 1994, Brad pressed me so much to the point that I was forced to pick sides. And I sided with Keith. Okay, because let me tell you something. By March, April, May 1994, Keith was my best friend. And of course, he was announcing to me that he was moving to Dallas, and I told him I was going to move to Lubbock. And we promised that we would keep in touch no matter what. See, I was the one going away to college with all the glory days and all the wonderful stuff. And Keith, bless his heart, he had to put up with a lot of strength to put up with what he put up with once he moved to Dallas. But it was like Keith was like a rock to me. You remember episode 145? It was called "For Every Worry Under the Sun." That was a piece of wisdom that Keith gave me when, at the very first, my marriage was falling apart. And you're saying, well, Jimmy, what's this have to do with Empower Your Pattern? Because without Keith Cotton, there would be no wisdom for Empower Your Pattern. Okay, whether we want to see it that way or not. He passed away on April 4th, 2003. Just 2 months shy of his 40th birthday. And I have to tell you guys something. My heart in some ways still aches for the void I feel. Yes, I have a best friend that is across the street from me and everything. But I realize, he's got a wife and family. He can't always, be with me. And I guess one consolation I have is that my buddy Keith, he's here with me in spirit. We understood each other almost perfectly. We had inside jokes together. He took me fishing once when I caught my first fish. And now I don't have very many fishing buddies. We played a card game now called Contract Rummy. Nobody else that I know knows how to play that game. Keith was like a rock. When my marriage finally did break up in 1999, in December 1999, once I discovered that she was not coming back, Keith showed me a better way. He told me, you can still live a good life just as well without her. And you know what? He was right. He set the path. He lit the torch for me. Let me tell you something. I would not have continued my interest in personal development after my marriage broke up had it not been for my buddy Keith Cotton, who told me in June of 2001 to pick up the torch and continue that interest. He said, you can't drop it just because your ex-wife hated it and decided to ditch you and leave you. You can't drop it. You may ask, well, Jimmy, what was it that caused him to die so young? He had inherited cirrhosis of the liver. And someone asked, well, was he a drinker? No, hardly ever. But I think the one time I've seen him drinking in my presence, he would drink his drink and then he would just bust out crying. He's like, yo, Jimmy, I'm so sorry. I feel so guilty inside and everything. And so he hardly ever drank because really, deep down, Keith hated alcohol. But I think there were times that he went to that because his strength was waning. Let me tell you something. Keith is the inspiration behind me joining the Restored Church of Christ. Okay? He was one of the friends when Jim when Jim Bob and Brad were being flaky and couldn't help me. Keith would come along and nicely and politely say, stand your butt up. You don't walk alone. And I really appreciated that. So, he was polite. Keith was always polite and loving and everything. But sometimes he had to be firm with me. He was my best friend. But now, he's my late BFE. You say, what does BFE mean? BFE means best friends for eternity. Because he took an interest in me. One thing he told me when my marriage was breaking up, he said, look, I know you don't want to admit it, but she was halting your progression spiritually. As far as Christianity, she was in baby steps. And you were far more advanced. And you was always having to hold her hand. Jimmy, that was not good for you. That was not good enough for you. And you deserve better. I think of all the wonderful things that happened because he took me in hand and said, hey, Jimmy, I realize you're not happy. I realize you're suffering. But there's a better way. There's a better way. He took me in hand and said, there is a better way. When no one else around me at the time, in 1999 when my marriage broke up, no one else around me could help me. When my grandmother died in December 1995, and in 1996 I was falling apart. I remember the spring break of 1996. It was like Keith, metaphorically, was grabbing me by the scruff of the neck saying, hey, wake the heck up. Your grandmother would want you groveling and mourning like this. Just dying on the vine and giving up. He was my best friend. And I think if we could have done almost everything away, but we were separated about 500 miles away. And when I lived in Lubbock and when I lived in Odessa. But he would always find a way every few months to come visit me. Until his health broke down. I remember back in 2001, he came to me, he said, Jimmy, I'm having some health problems. He said, I just hope it's not another brain cancer. And I thought to me, I was like, oh no. Keith, I can't afford to lose you. Okay, and